Hey, what's going on, Los Angeles? Welcome in to I guess we can say, rebranded show a little bit, where it's still going to be the same exact style, all Rams coverage for you, but it's going to be now called the Rams Skinny. My man, Skinny T, is going to be kind of the leader of this show, leader of our Rams coverage, as he has been for many, many years. But now in the audio and video space, we're giving him kind of full control to lead that as well. So welcome to the Rams Skinny here on the LA Football Network. And of course, Skinny T leading the charge. What's up, brother? How we doing?
Doing fantastic. The story I wanted to tell you in the intro, my parents, as you know, were just in town, and part of their visit is they were bringing a bunch of my junk that I left in their basement from when I moved out 15 years ago, and some of that was my baseball cards, and I was going through and unearthing all of the $5,000 Shaquille O'Neal rookie cards and things like that.
Of course.
I came across Pat Mahomes rookie cards. Pat Mahomes senior rookie cards. He was a Minnesota Twin to begin with, and that I was delighted by that. So that's my intro story for how I'm doing. Is I'm delighted by a Pat Mahomes rookie card senior.
Hey, that's great. I mean, hey, he was quite the ball player. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't beat that. Yeah. Did you collect football cards too, or just baseball cards?
Baseball, football, hockey, and basketball. I got all the four major American sports there
Okay,
covered.
there you go. Because I collected like a crap ton of football cards. I had some hockey and some basketball. Randomly, no baseball, which is crazy since that was like the main thing for sport card collecting. But dude, I was going through like my football cards recently, and I forgot. Like, I'm sure if I really, I'm pretty sure cards are still worth something nowadays, and I think they're kind of coming back a little bit on the up and up. I probably have like quite the gold mine. Like, I have a Dan Marino rookie card. I have a Peyton Manning rookie card. I have a Walter Payton card. I have an OJ Simpson card. I
Oh,
have
wow.
a Tom Brady rookie card. Like, some of the cards I have, I'm like John Elway rookie card. I'm like, probably have to sit on a little gold mine here. It's wild.
Yeah, I mean, I found some real gems. I have a pretty good looking Derek Jeter rookie card in my
Ooh,
baseball collection. So I'm kind of excited to see if I mean, it's not going to change my life, and I'm probably actually not going to sell any of them. I'm going to sit on them for another 25 years or whatever. But it's the most fun was kind of like going down memory lane as an early sports fan. Just kind of you know it's funny because that's how we've got all these connections to sports now where you can just get on the internet and find the score and find the box scores, and that was sports cars were kind of like you'd find out that your favorite player got traded or something like that.
hmm,
You'd open the pack and he's like, oh, he's an angel now. Oh man.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
totally. I remember like you trade with your buddies when you're a kid, and this was when I was, in elementary school. And it's like, I'm thinking this is like probably a bad example, but it's like my buddy maybe was a Raider fan. It's like, oh, I got a Warren Sapp when he's a Buccaneer. Like, do you want him as a Buccaneer and, add it to your Raider collection? So it's like, yeah, it's kind of funny thinking
Yeah.
back of all that. Like, I want to get to that point where money's no issue and my kids, whatever, if they don't want them or have everything they want. And like, I want to have that Sandlot moment, right? Where some kid like throws a baseball through my window, breaks it, and I just invite him inside. I'm like, oh, you want my Walter Payton card I've had for 45 years? Like, here you go, Sonny. No big deal. No skin off my back. I'll trade you. That's what I want to do one day.
I love that fantasy. That's a great movie. Great movie.
Oh, so good. Underrated. So anyway, what's up, Ramley? Excited to be talking to you. Show is always brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. We've been talking about Bet Online. Obviously, they've been a sponsor for ours for a long, long time. Well, guess what? NFL football is days away. So finally you can make some actual bets where you can get some payout very quickly. We've been talking futures for so long. The future is now because you can bet on this Rams Seahawks game if you want. Any other game in the NFL slate, obviously college football now heading into week 3. And so everything can be done at betonline.ag, promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. It's going to get you a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Telling the guys at the LA Football Network sent you. Skinny T. So the first episode technically of the Rams Skinny. Give us the topic we're diving into today.
Well, heading into this season, we've got the Rams, who don't seem like they're a Super Bowl contender for the first time in several years. In the whole McVay era, it doesn't seem like the expectations are to get into the playoffs, get it, win a couple of games, get to the big game, get the NFC Championship game. So I wanted to kind of explore what would it look like, or what does success look like for this team? What is it? What is it at the end of the year? What does this organization want from to learn from 2023?
Yeah, it's such a great question because, I think that's when you look at fans, media, podcasters, everyone, right? I feel like it's kind of split. There's not even split, probably like more 70 on the probably your side and 30 on maybe my side that think there's a chance this team can actually make the playoffs, sneak in, whether it's 8 or 9 wins. And once you're in the dance, who knows? And the other side is like, this is definitely a rebuilding year. Maybe not a tanking year, but it's definitely a rebuilding year. Either way, I think I would hope anyway, no credible person thinks this is a Super Bowl contending team. Like, yeah, you can get to the dance and maybe surprise people you never know. But as we sit right now on September 5th, 2023, like any credible person that follows football knows that this roster right now is not a Super Bowl contending team. So that being said, it's really interesting to look at, okay, what defines success this year? And I think, Ryan, it's going to be a lot of fun kind of telling the story of what that looks like, whether it's certain player success stories, whether it's coaching success stories, whether it's trades, whether it's shedding more cap, whatever it may look like. So excited to get into it. I think there's really no true outline. Like we can just go kind of back and forth on certain situations and kind of spar for the next 20 minutes or so and see where we end up. So for you to start, kind of what's a first barometer, like not the overall umbrella, but just, a first segment of success?
Well, I think that Sean McVay, offensive guy, he's going to want to find some rhythm this year that was completely lacking last year. Now we know there was a lot of injuries across the board. Offensive line is was the main culprit for all those injuries. So the thing that I wrote down for what success will mean for the Rams in 2023 is to find themselves a top 10 starting left tackle on their roster. We don't know exactly what this offensive line is going to look like, but if you go back and you look at any successful football team, probably from the last 10 years, and maybe going back even further, they've all had a very successful, very maybe not the most elite left tackle in the game, but one of the top left tackles in the league. So especially coming off of last year, this offensive line is going to be better, but this is the key position that we really don't have any answers so far sitting here today, a few days before the Rams play the Seahawks. And we're going to learn a lot about that going forward. But, the two top contenders for that spot so far have been Alaric Jackson and Joesph Noteboom. And really, they haven't even proven that they can do that with sustained success over a long period of time.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a great point because, and I'll just piggyback and I'll give my own, but yeah, we don't have, this is like the last 2 years, basically since Andrew Whitworth retired. So going into last year and then now coming into this year, where the offensive line in general is just so much unknown what there's going to be, and people can pretend to be optimistic about it, and we can hype this unit up as like, okay, we got improvement. We got Wendell in now as a great offensive line coach potentially. But yeah, that needs to be a huge learning this year of what do they have at offensive line? Like, do they need to go into 24 and like tear this thing apart and outside of quarterback potentially draft every other position, only focusing on the offensive line? We'll see. I think they do have some guys that actually absolutely can play. But to your point, that's going to be a success if they can answer that themselves with who's on the roster. So I love that one. I think that's super important. I'll stick with coaching a little bit. I know you went mostly for a unit, but I'm going to go on defense and I'm going to look at Raheem Morris. And I think Raheem Morris is a great football coach. I know the Rams fan base is very, I don't know if they're split or just more negative. I would probably say, at least on Rams Twitter, definitely more negative leaning towards Brandon Staley. And everyone brings up like the soft zone or this or that. In reality, I don't know if I just said Brandon Staley once in there, but in reality, Raheem Morris is a phenomenal football coach, and at one time or another probably will be a head coach once again in this league. He's beloved by his players, and schematically, I think he does a lot of good things. I think there's stuff he still needs to improve on. I think there's some aggressiveness he could change in his game to be more aggressive. I think there is some of the soft stuff situationally that he can improve on. But overall, he's extremely smart, has a great football IQ. He's a great leader of men. Players love him, and he schematically is very sound in what he is teaching and coaching. For me, what I want to see, what is a success for the Rams, because I don't think last year or the year before looked like a promising year for Raheem to maybe get back into the NFL coaching circle. This is that year where it's going to go twofold. It's either going to springboard him to the top of the list because he turns this young unit into an actual competent, good defensive unit. And so that is a huge win for Raheem Morris, but obviously that would turn into a big loss for the Rams because you're starting back at 0-1 on their defensive coordinator spectrum. So it's either going to be that or it's going to be just a truly almost, I would say, to talk about current events, Burning Man experience in finding yourself as a coach, because he's truly going back to his roots. He doesn't have a Jalen Ramsey in the secondary. Obviously, you still have Aaron Donald, but outside of Aaron Donald, you're got a bunch of young cats on this roster, even the good players, Jordan Fuller and Ernest Jones. You got a third year and a fourth year, or 2 third years, bunch of young cats on this roster. So he can get truly back to his roots of teaching and coaching and embody that. So I think a success margin for the Rams would be just developing this young talent. So going into the next year, some of the offensive line, like you said, going into next year, you say, okay, we got Jordan Fuller as a staple at safety. We got Ernest Jones as a staple at linebacker. Obviously, as long as Aaron Donald's here, he'll be a staple. But who else have we developed that we feel really good about? Kobe Durant, there's a lot of excitement about. They've got a lot of young safety prospects that they need, some development and just reps in general. You've got a lot of other guys in the secondary that need reps. You got a lot of defensive linemen that need reps. You really don't have anyone on edge. So who are they going to develop to be your edge guys? So that I think would determine success. I'm kind of piggybacking off of yours, but what they can develop over a season to say, okay, we've now shown what we have on defense and what we have to improve in free agency in the draft. But if they go in the next offseason and say, we basically have to improve everything in the defense besides 2 positions, then this was a catastrophic year.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I wrote down. I wrote down, find viable starters on defense from the 21, 22, and 23 class. Obviously, the 23 class is still writing their narrative. But some of those 21 guys and 22 guys, we've lost some of them already. Robert Rochelle has moved on. I think Danielle Hardy was released. And, that's hard to see. But some of those guys got a hit because if you look at the 2024 draft class, you want to be able to use those high picks toward higher end things, not patching holes that they've been trying to patch over and over and over again on this defense, where they just keep striking out on, Terrell Lewis and, Terrell Burgess that we really liked. And, Bobby Brown and Ernest Brown, they're still kind of mysteries. They're still on the roster. But yeah, I absolutely 100% think that, Raheem Morris coaching those guys up, and some of those guys, not just, we don't need to necessarily find any starters or find any stars for the defense, but we need to find starters, just people that can fill that role. Guys like Greg Gaines, Sebastian Joseph Day, Nick Scott, Darius Williams. He's not a draftee, but one of those guys who just holds it down at his position, shows up when he needs to show up. Doesn't need to be a Jalen Ramsey guy, but just needs to fill that starting roster spot that those coaches can feel really good about it. Yeah, so I think the other thing on defense I would say is that would be a success for the Rams is how do we keep AD from requesting a trade?
I like that. Okay.
He doesn't seem like he has a long-term goal of sticking around in the NFL for another 10 years or something like that. It seems like he's got maybe 2 or 3 years left in the tank. What are your thoughts on AD's near future with the Rams? There's been lots of kind of hypothetical situations of, trade situations. Do you think he would ever go so far as to want to move on?
Man, that is a great question, and one that we've, I think, talked about a lot, if not off air, even sometimes on air. But, here's how I feel like the pitch has gone to AD when he was really contemplating retirement after the Super Bowl, and then probably again last offseason. Rams brass, I would assume, was probably pretty honest with him. You never want to assume anything, but a player that caliber, you kind of have to be. Otherwise, it might get murky. And I would assume they went to him and said, hey, 23 is going to be probably a very different year for you and for us. Like, we're going to tear this thing down, but then we are going to build this thing back up quicker than any other NFL franchise ever has in the history of the NFL. And we're tearing this thing down to the studs. We're still going to be competitive because we have you, we have staff, we have Kupp, and we have arguably a top 3 coach in the entire NFL in Sean McVay. So 23, we'll have our growing pains. You're going to be charged with, basically being the entire defense along with coaching up these young bucks. But in 24 and 25, when your contract expires, we're going to be right back at the mountaintop and competing for world championships. That had to be the pitch, I would assume. And obviously that pitch, I think, worked at this sense. Now, to your question and to your success of doing anything to not asking requests for a trade, this season being what it is cannot be a 1-16 season, cannot be a 2-14 season and an absolute. It can't be last year again. Like, even the wins aside, it just cannot be an abysmal year. It needs to at least be a competitive year with some fun excitement, some youthful joy. And so I think as long as they can inject some joy back into playing the game and say, you know what, you're making your money, we're having a lot of fun in a franchise, and next year and the year prior or the year after, we're going to be extremely competitive again. Just wait it out. Like, as an employee, if I'm an employee at a company and they're telling me all these things and they're showing me the blueprint of going that, I'd probably stick around. If the blueprint's crap and it really doesn't show me any true semblance that we would ever get there, then if this year turns south quickly and we're 2-4, 2-5, 2-6, then I could absolutely see Aaron Donald saying, you know what, I got 2 years left. I've made enough money. I love LA. I love this team. I love this city. But like Matthew Stafford just did, like, I would love to go and chase one more ship, whether that's with Pittsburgh, where I'm originally from, whether that's to some other team, whatever it may be. Love you guys, but I think I can probably net you another first-round pick. It's good for you guys. It's good for me. Let's make it happen. So, rambled a lot there. Let me get your thoughts now.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of leads into my next point of success is the Rams have to go 3-3 in the NFC West for this to be a successful season for them, and I think
100%.
that ties into keeping Aaron Donald around. He has some pretty visceral feelings about his divisional opponents, probably specifically the San Francisco 49ers. So taking a game from a team like that, or a team that's coming in with a lot of hype week one, the Seattle Seahawks, I think is going to mean a lot toward keeping a guy like that around. I was doing some roster math a couple of days ago, and the 3 pillars, as Les Snead likes to call them, Stafford, Kupp, and Donald, are going to cost them, the Rams, in 2024 towards the cap about 45% of their total cap. And there's going to be restructures, for probably all 3 of those contracts. But that makes, a pretty enticing trade candidate for a guy like Les Snead. And I wonder. This is kind of flipping it the whole script, but I wonder if he goes from the f them picks GM to the load up on them picks kind of GM.
Wow.
So
Wow. Yeah, that'd be fascinating.
yeah, right. So this organization doesn't kind of they're very emotional on one hand. I was going to say they're not emotional about players, but obviously it's proven not to be true. They're quite emotional about it, but there's a dichotomy there where it's sometimes they're very emotional and they want to really hold on to guys, and sometimes it's like, hey, this is the business of the NFL, and
Yeah.
so. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I think winning those competitive games, getting some W's on the wall that they can hang their hat on, will keep AD around. But I think you're right about the 2022 season. That I don't think he's going to stick around for that kind of stretch of losing.
Yeah, and I think he has to have that feeling of not just empowerment, but and not just love, but that feeling of dedication from his coach, right? In Sean McVay. Like if you're the star of a franchise and you're the star of a city and your own head coach is unsure if he's coming back or if he's dedicated to the craft. And I'm not taking anything away from Sean McVay, who's put everything into this organization since he's been here. But last year, it was pretty evident that he was not all in terms of just mentally. I'm not saying he didn't put the work in. Like he definitely put the work in, but he was, it weighed on him. And all the reports out there where it was a struggle for him to get through it. So obviously he's turned that page, and I think he's found that rejuvenation to really be excited about football again, and is looking for the next, not just this year, but the next 2, 3, 4 years. And I think as long as that stays true, that's going to help Aaron Donald as well, because the last thing you need is your coach having that. Well, you said last year that was just last year, and now you're back into it. And if he starts wavering again, then it's like, all right, dude, well, I'm out of here. Like, what are we doing here? I got 2 years left in my prime. Like, I got, yeah, you could coach as long as you want because coaching doesn't take it out on you physically. Yeah, mentally, but you can keep coaching or you can go get a broadcasting job. I got 2 years, right? 2, 3 years. So as long as I think it's Sean McVay is fully bought in, which I believe he is, and like he has his all and his emotion, then I think as long as they don't go, like I said, 2-6 or 1-8 or something to start the year, then I think there's no reason why Aaron Donald doesn't retire a Ram.
Yeah, so he's McVay's at the helm of the ship. Offense is his specialty. What does success look like for offense for this team in this year for you?
So, like 2 things. I don't want to talk too much. I want to go back and forth, but let's start with the running game. To me, success for this year, and this is no disrespect to Cam Akers, who I think can really has the talent to take this backfield, but for whatever reason, I'm so high on Kyren Williams. I just think he has so much talent. Obviously, did some great things at Notre Dame. Got injured early last year, which kind of ruined the season. And then I think honestly, just with how the offensive line was and the injuries, like I think McVay probably held him out. Like we talked all year, like why is Kyren Williams not playing? Like you need guys back there. I think they probably was like, let's not risk like this guy who we think is so talented for the future when we just know this year is a wash. Could be wrong on that, but that's just what I think. So to me, it's seeing what you truly have in Kyren Williams as a rusher. And that being said, I mean, you really only have 2 years left with him because in reality, what the Rams are going to do is draft a running back every year, wash and repeat. Like, so Cam Akers in the contract year, he'll probably have a pretty good statistical season this year, but we'll see a lot from Kyren Williams. They probably won't re-sign Cam. Kyren will become like the lead back going into 24. They'll draft someone else and they just kind of keep that rotation going. So I'm not saying that because I think Kyren Williams is the next Todd Gurley or the next franchise back, but I think we need to see going into next year that they have a back on the roster that they don't have to go and sign Cam to a lot of money or sign a free agent because Kyren Williams has shown enough to be the lead back with some other young bucks underneath him. So getting that running game back in fortitude, using that zone scheme to their advantage and sticking with it, as we talked, Skinny T, a lot last year. Like you got to run the ball at least 30 times in this offense. And there was times where he ran it 12 times. 18 times, 14 times. Like, run it 30 times and your chance for success is that much greater. That means give Cam Akers, whatever it is, 14, 15 carries, give Kyron Williams 10 to 12 carries, and then spread it out for the rest for the other ones. So that was what I would deem success, at least for the running game.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of a vote of confidence toward at least schematically what they're trying to do, the PFF anyway, take it with a grain of salt, graded the Rams as one of, I think, the 6th best rushing team in the preseason. And so that's without Kyron, that's without Cam Akers. But you can see you could see some of the influences that LaFleur brought into the running game, kind of diversifying what they're showing there a little bit at the very least. And I wrote it down the same thing in terms of rushing. When they won the Super Bowl in 2021, they were number 16 in rushing efficiency. It's not great, but it's way better than they were in 2022. So getting back to at least just we're a complete full offense, you know.
Yeah.
And
dead middle.
Just hit the mean, just, get a C average, just pass the class. That's all we're asking you to do, McVay. So, piggybacking off of that, the thing that will be successful for the Rams this year is Stafford finding his next favorite receiver. We all know who his favorite one is. His near future, at the very least, seems to be up in question. Cooper Kupp might not play. My guess is he probably won't play, just out of an abundance of caution, if not more. But the thing we saw last season, 2022, is he couldn't find a connection with another receiver until Van Jefferson came back fully healthy, and they had some chemistry. So we'll have Van Jefferson, but we've got a whole new cast of characters at wide receiver. Puka Nacua is a rookie. Tutu Atwell is going to be a larger part of this offense, and we haven't seen that connection. Stafford has had a full offseason to make that connection with these guys, so hopefully that pays off. But that was one of the things I wanted to see in the preseason, just for a few, one or two series at the very least, just to see let's see a little bit of this high-powered offense once again from McVay. What do you think on that?
No, that was going to be my other point too, is who's going to step up in the receiving room. And, I thought it was evident that Tutu Atwell has obviously made a jump in this offseason program and in training camp, considering how little to know he played in training camp or in preseason, which is an indicator. Obviously, he's, wide receiver 3, basically behind Van and Coop. So, I think seeing how involved he is and how much more he's involved besides just maybe the long ball, how much they use him in short and intermediate stuff. And then Puka Nacua, I thought obviously was the fan favorite as a rookie, and rightfully so. I thought he played very well. Benny Skro, I honestly was one of the ones thinking like maybe he won't make this roster. I know many people didn't think that, but we talked. I thought maybe his jack of all trades maybe would have left him as the odd man out. Clearly not, which is good. Love Benny Skro. I think he brings a lot to this offense. So seeing what his role truly looks like. And then, the likes of Demarcus Robinson, who I think has a lot of talent and can bring a lot to this offense. So yeah, I think that you absolutely have to find that other piece, because in their Super Bowl season, obviously Cooper Kupp was a Triple Crown winner. Like, he was the face of that receiving core, but Stafford was at least able to spread it around to others a little bit, not a lot. And that was kind of the issue then too, Skinny T. I mean, if you remember the beginning of the season before he got injured, Robert Woods was not getting fed the ball. I think it was 3 weeks in, everyone was like, is Robert Wood washed? Like, everyone always thinks like the receivers washed because they're not getting the ball, right? Like, receiver's the most dependent position ever. Maybe because I played it, so I'm very nostalgic and I'll defend them. But it's like you can't do anything if you don't have the ball. And then in week 4, again, I'm maybe mixing up weeks, but all of a sudden it's like they made a point to pepper Robert Woods the ball. He had like 10 receptions for like 120 yards in week 4, and then it went back to the same, and he was like getting like 1 or 2 catches a game. So Stafford, since he's been here, has kind of had that issue with finding someone other than Cooper Kupp, which I get because the best or second best receiver in all of football. But finding that second, third, fourth receiver that they can really connect with is a huge, huge thing for this season going forward, especially with the youth that they have. And they have the thought of re-signing Van Jefferson. Tutu is going to go into year 4. Do they bring back Demarcus Robinson? Puka Nacua obviously was under contract for a while, but he's a rookie. So it's a great point because I think that's super important to how they not only play this year, but moving into the years to come.
Yeah. And I looked at a few different statistics for Stafford between 2021 and 2022, and his man coverage stats, or stats against man coverage, that is to say, dropped significantly. And
Really?
He went from one of the best quarterbacks against man coverage to one of the worst. And they don't see a lot of man coverage, but there was also a big drop off between his success over the middle of the field. So what this is kind of illustrating is that he was having confidence issues in tight coverage. And as we know, one of the things that Cooper Kupp is great at is separation, using his speed and his route running to just clearly be an open receiver. And that was one of the reasons I think he struggled with Allen Robinson last year. Was he's more of a contested catch guy, put it in the spot, and I'm going to go up and get it. And I think that Stafford just likes a guy that is more obviously open, if that makes any sense. So hopefully the confidence that he has in these younger receivers has built over this offseason so far. So going back to McVay being at the helm, one of the big stats that we had heard about him early on in his career is he would win all of these games if he was winning by halftime. And
yes.
That, he was, 35-0, 45, something like that. But this year he's going to be going into halftime, I don't think, leading a lot of games. So I think one of the things that will be, I think this is probably the biggest thing, is if he can make adjustments at halftime that will allow him to score points and win some games, get some comebacks, make some, score some points in the second half. I think that's probably the biggest thing, because that'll actually show a lot of growth from him, because he comes out firing. He comes out in the season firing and then tapers off a little later in the season. He comes out in every game firing and then tapers off a little bit after. So I think that's probably my last point of success for the Rams this season.
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's so interesting. Like the halftime adjustments in general are always fascinating, right? Because it's a real thing. I'm not saying it's not real, but I think fans thought about it, and what actually happens is very different. That's not to say it's not right or wrong, but fans think, okay, you go into the locker room, you make all these big adjustments, like you get on the whiteboard and you say this and this and that, and you do a little rah-rah speech to get everyone going, and you come out and you implement those adjustments. From every player I've talked to, I've never been in an NFL locker room. I'm not going to pretend that I have, but I've talked to a lot of players that have, and they say, like, there's many games where you may not even hear from the head coach. You may not even hear from your position coach. You might go in there, you literally like get a retape job in your ankle, or you drink some water, maybe eat some fruit, something, like
Have
hydrate. Yeah, have a cigarette or two, drink a beer and have a brat like old Babe Ruth would do, and then you're back on the field. I mean, it's literally 10 minutes. I mean, it's quick. So this whole stigma of like, they're going in the locker room, they all sit down, the coach gives this rah-rah speech, does some X's and O's on the board, how we're going to change. You come out, you do a nice breakdown and come out, and then you change the game is just not true. That being said, there obviously is things that the coaches quickly go over about adjustments, and it's very quick. It's not like a full game plan change. But to what you're saying, which I absolutely agree, like McVay has been not great at totally adjusting when losing going into halftime. When winning, he's been great at continuing, keeping the gas down and keeping the firepower going. And obviously his record speaks for himself. But when he's losing going in, he hasn't been able to change a lot schematically or whatever to get his team back on top. So I agree with you. I think that's a huge point of emphasis of like, if that can shift a little bit, and again, it depends if you're going in down 20 or down 3, but if those one score halftime scores and they can come out and get fired up and have good drives right off the bat and script it a little better and then end games better, you're looking at huge success, even if it doesn't amount to win columns. But if you're looking at a shift in progress and positive play in the second half, I agree with you. That'd be a huge jump. So let's end with win total, if we're going to end with that. So, success we can deem as like all of everything we've talked about is basically pretending like this is a 4-win team. Like, okay, let's just look at, if we're a bad team, what can we take from success? But let's really look at, to end this, what you think success in terms of win and trajectory is for the Rams. So you start.
So I guess I like to think of it as a floor and the ceiling. How many wins are possible on this roster? 16, 17, it's not happening. I'm sorry to say that, fellas. Sorry to say that. It's not happening. So if they end with 6 wins, I think they can say this is a successful season. I think their ceiling is 8 wins, though. So I think their floor is 6 for a successful season. They can lose more games than that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I don't think this defense is going to win anybody games or be a backstop to any offense. They're going to have to score 35 points a game. But I think just to call it a successful season, I'm going to say they can call it a successful season if they get 6 wins. 3 wins from their own division. Take 1 from the 49ers or Seattle. They're going to get 2 from – if they don't get 2 from Cardinals, I don't think it can be a successful season.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I think they can steal a couple. And if they beat the teams that they should beat, Indianapolis, Cardinals, those kind of teams, they can get 8 wins.
Yeah, I think it's a very fair assessment. I think a lot of people are either very, very down on this team or very kind of unrealistic on this team just because of the magic powder that McVay has and Snead have spread over this Rams team since they've been here, which obviously they have, rightfully so. No losing seasons since they've been there, and only 1 non-playoff season. But this is a very different team, and I agree with you pretty much full-heartedly. I think, to me, a success, if they can take 3 of the division right off the bat, that's a success. If they can take 4, meaning essentially they probably swept the Cardinals and took 1-1 from the Seahawks and 49ers, huge success. If they go 4-2 in the division, great success, because those are the teams that they haven't quite had the success. Obviously, McVay's had huge success against the Cardinals. What's his record? Like 9-1 or whatever it is. He's had decent success against the Seahawks, and he's had horrible success against the Niners outside of the NFC Championship game when it mattered most. But if they're able to take those games, that's a big thing. And then, like you said, just beat the teams they have the better quarterback in. Like if they can go into the games like, all right, Stafford is better than X, and they can hold on and win that game, then that is big. I think, like I've said many times, I think this team is a potential playoff flirting team. It's a flirt. They're not a guarantee. They're not a one I feel confident I'm betting on if I'm going to bet online. But they're definitely flirting with playoff just because of the three horsemen, if you will, in Stafford, Donald, and Kupp, and Sean McVay. I think Sean McVay is getting way not enough credit in the coaching ranks. And for whatever reason, like, the guy's done nothing but been successful and been one of the architects of offensive masterminds. And he gets overlooked by everyone in the Shanahan tree for whatever reason. Like, people like Mike McDaniel's a better coach than Sean McVay because he's had 1 year at Miami. Like, come on. Like, I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but like, let's not disrespect what Sean McVay has done and built out here in LA. So because of that, I would say, to me, their floor, you said 6 wins?
To call it a successful season, I would say 6 wins, yeah.
6 wins. I'll go 7, but I also agree their ceiling is 9. I think originally a few weeks ago or a month ago, I had said 10. I think they can get. Preseason was a little rough. I don't know if I feel very confident about 10 wins after seeing the depth on this team. But I think they can still get to 9. They can still surprise people. And if they get in between that 7 and 9, like that would be a tremendous coaching job from Sean McVay, Raheem Morris, and a hugely successful season, in my opinion.
And I think that puts them in the playoff picture in the NFC for sure.
Yeah.
Man, it's going to be a wild year in the NFC. There's so many interesting teams.
Wild. And it all starts this Sunday against the Seahawks. We'll be back on the Rams Skinny with Skinny T. Pumped that that's the new branding. Excited for you, brother. You're going to crush it all year long. But we'll be back previewing the Seahawks-Rams game on the Rams Skinny. Anything else you want to add before we sign off for the night?
No, super excited to cover this season. It's we're going to learn so much, and you learn a lot from losing more than winning. So fans, this is the time that pay attention, keep engaged, because we're going to learn a lot about Sean McVay. We're going to learn a lot about the future of the Rams, and that's exciting.
Yeah, cannot wait. So we'll be back Thursday or Friday is when we'll probably record the next episode. We're going to be on, obviously, radio every Friday on the mightier 1090 ESPN radio from 5 to 7. So make sure to tune in there. But for Skinny T, I'm Ryan Dyrud. This is the Rams Skinny. Talk to you all soon.